Yeah, welcome once again to our Earth Restoration, Earth Healing webinar series for July. This time we are blessed to have Vjekoslav Saje with us, introducing practical considerations for eco-friendly practices like
Practices.
roof gardens and recycling and things like that. So I'm excited to and curious to hear from you, Vjeko. So, as usual, we are a small group right now. Feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat. And yeah, we'll have some time for conversation a little bit later. So good to have the team here, Dimitar, Lauren, our wonderful Earth Restoration Coordinator. And with that, I'd like to give it to Dimitar for a brief introduction to our series.
Mhm.
Thank you, Lauren. Whoa. Well, thank you, Lauren, as well for always being here for us, even though it's early morning in the States. But thank you, Karima, for the lovely introduction and for handing over the word. Um, Dear friends, first of all, I also would like to thank all of you for being here and on the 20th of July. It's almost summer for some. For once, I am going on holiday tomorrow. So it's really good to
Uh-huh.
see you all right before my first day of holiday. But before we move in and let Vieko tell us what he wants to present, I would like to mention briefly that 6 months ago, we got together for the first time as a group of people, mainly based in Europe, and we had this idea of doing something together, doing something together for the environment, not only in Europe, but elsewhere, and have this space as a space for learning and growing together in a way that we could create something better, better for the environment, better for us. And we started with very careful steps of the first few people talking about different things while we were slowly turning this into a series of webinars, all focused on earth healing and restoration. And here we are today. This is the sixth webinar that we have and that we've had. And I want to tell you now, before we jump into Vieko's word, that what we're doing together is really something very important, even though we sometimes might feel like we are jumping from topic to topic, from people working in Africa, in Syria, in the Levant, in the Mashriq, in the Maghreb, in Europe, in the US. We hear practices from everywhere. And it is these practices that actually help us develop a better understanding of what people in our connection, in our network, are doing to create a better environment. And I'm not only speaking about the Aura environment, I'm only also speaking about any other type of natural environment and the natural environment that we are part of, because this is very important. And we should every time ground ourselves and remind ourselves that we are part of the natural environment we are trying to heal. Let us remember this every time we speak of it. And how can we do that? Well, that's why we have Vieco here today, because on top of the top-down approaches that we have seen, mentioning sustainability as a very big word, we have also very small practices which can be done without any finance, without any additional materials, but with everyday things. And people are actually doing that, regardless of the lack of any top-down action. But instead of me speaking now, I would like to welcome Vieco. We would like to welcome Vieco, and we can hear more. Of course, after this, we can have
Okay.
time for, as Karima said, some interaction, perhaps questions. And in the meantime, if you do have any questions, feel free to type them in the chat. So, Vieco, please, over to you.
Thank you, Dimitar, for this introduction. And what I actually wanted to show you is basically what I notice in my neighborhood, and I just was walking around and make some pictures of good practices that are happening in my neighborhood. And later on, you will see something that is disturbing, that is actually something that we should try to fight not to happen, but it is happening, unfortunately. So maybe Karima can start showing this slide of good practices, which I did walking through my street, through my neighborhood, and noticing something that can actually improve and enrich our environment, like fences with vines are much better than what you will see later, that people are putting plastic plants instead of natural plants. These are some pictures that I consider good examples of my neighborhood in my street. I live on the hill and I'm fortunate to have a lot of green areas in my neighborhood. These are some gardens of my neighbors, and it is a good example how we can help insects, bees, also not only to have a nice garden, but also to bring biodiversity in our environment. One academy for cooking actually made some kind of wall of different spices of lavandas and sage and ivies, and it is just next to my apartment building, and that's how I think this is how we should approach enriching our environment. This is one picture of how we celebrate this nature in our in our city, and teaching. This is a teacher and one guy who is in our center for kids with special needs, and he's also learning how to actually appreciate the nature and find values in the nature. This is also one area where it is forsythia bushes that are flourishing, and you can
Hmm.
imagine
Wow.
how bees are enjoying this environment. Later, you will see some mistakes that some of the people who are taking care of the parks are doing. This is how we should somehow approach the nature. And I think we came now to the chapter of bad practices. Maybe, Karima, you can show. Yeah, you see asphalt everywhere, concrete everywhere. And we are sometimes surprised about flash floodings in our cities, but people are doing so much harm to the nature by putting too much of the concrete and asphalt. You see everything in this part of my street, no green, and of course it is not healthy, and it doesn't look good in our environment. This is also some one kindergarten, and they put plastic, even plastic and synthetic, on the floor instead of children playing on the grass and in the fields. This is a bad practice of putting asphalt even in front of the garage, while it was actually designed to have just strips of perforated concrete tiles just for the wheels. But unfortunately, some of our neighbors are putting asphalt and concrete everywhere. And you see how ugly it looks. But this used to be, before it used to be grass and just strips of perforated concrete to get into garage. Maybe you can continue, Karima.
Yeah, now comes the roof garden.
Okay. So I like the English expression walk the talk. So when you talk about something theoretically, you also need to do something on your own. And for example, I did on my roof, part of the roof, I actually brought soil and I have now different plants on my roof, and it also prevents the heat to get into my apartment, and in winter it is protecting me from cold weather. And also it is very efficient when it's big rain falling. The roof, this garden is sucking the the water into the ground. And of course, it is wonderful for the animals. And even some cats come here and walk around on the roof, and of course, bees and all kinds of insects and birds. This is actually on the roof of my apartment. So sometimes I come here, I put blanket and have a breakfast with my grandson. This is another part of my roof garden. I have also iris blossoming, another area of this garden. And that's, and also I have even some cactus uh, also growing on the roof. And they are in blossom, you see.
Beautiful.
So now we come to flash flooding, which is caused mainly because we use too much concrete on our streets and in our courtyards. Sarajevo used to be a city of gardens, but now people are actually have tendency to build storages or garage in those gardens, and of course the rainwater cannot go anywhere else but on the streets. So we
Vieko,
can.
shall I take the flash flood or the roof wall garden ideas afterwards?
Okay, you can take roof wall gardens. Yes, yes.
Uh-huh.
Just
Okay.
few slides
Yes.
of some practices outside of my city in some places. Yeah, these are some good practices in other cities, how we can enrich our environment and take care of the bees in particular. And it can be put on balconies, on roofs, on walls. Of course, it is worth mentioning the oxygen that is these plants are producing, and they are cleaning the air of the city. And now we come to the flash flooding pictures. Some of them I couldn't actually open, but I think that I have two slides or three. Yes, this is what happens when too much concrete and asphalt is in the cities. And in Sarajevo, recently there was also flooding because on the slopes of Sarajevo, we used to have granite tiles on the streets, but some politician decided to remove that and put asphalt, and now we have flooding in the downtown parts.
Mm.
You will be able to see that, I think, at the end of. This is Sarajevo Bazaar, flooded, and it never happened before. So you see how much we actually endanger our environment just by some stupid political decisions connected with corruption. Also, we have to take care of the garbage, and I personally recycle garbage, and I select different types of garbage, and especially put emphasis on compost. These are some examples of how batteries should be treated. This is also all kinds of electronic stuff that should be collected. This is one picture from Ohrid Lake when we had a seminar, assembly of URI, Europe, in Ohrid, and we decided to clean the beach from different garbage and cigarette remains in particular. This is one photo of how garbage treatment plant can be used also for the power plant, and also one part can be used for skiing on grass. This is from Copenhagen. Good practice from Copenhagen. This is how it can be resolved. Unfortunately, in Mostar, in Bosnia and Herzegovina, we don't have this thing, but we have our garbage disposal that was burning for many days. Just recently it happened, and some people had to be evacuated from the area because the smoke was poisonous. This is what we collected on Ohrid Beach by the help of URI participants.
All the cigarettes.
You remember, Karima,
Cards.
this?
As a warning.
We were together there, yes. And this is how garbage should not be treated. Part of our program with the kids with the special needs and the persons with special needs is recycling in different ways and making art out of that. And we are having different workshops. For example, here we used some plastic bottles and turned them into the planters, and we actually put cactus or different flowers in it. This is how we use plastic bags. We use iron and make art out of the plastic bags, and make different items, and then some of them we even sell at the bazaars. These are our special need kids who are doing that. They are also making greeting cards out of that. Different pieces of art from plastic and from paper and fabric. We use a lot of old fabric and turn it into the art. The different greeting cards from different materials we make. This is using iron to make some art from the plastic bags. And it is really amazing how many things can be done from the remains of old things and fabric and plastic. These are some examples of the art that we did. And we also make bags. Now we come to the part in which I would like to show you how we can cherish the nature and enjoy the nature. And this is, of course, just one part of what we all can do in our life and in our environment. These are some good things that I would like to see in my city. This is again helping environment and helping bees, and easy to make. Another thing, you see bees how they're enjoying even in the center of the city. This is my balcony, and I try to have as much green as possible and to attract different animals and bees and spiders. This is again the slide of cherishing the nature. And in winter, we can bring the nature in our living room or kitchen and enjoy even vegetables in winter time. Of course, I always tell people cherish and save dandelions because they are very, very healthy and useful for bees and very good for your for the tea and for the salad, and it helps your bloodstream. And on my terrace, once I had this spider web, and I didn't want to destroy it. I find it amazing and very useful. So save the spiders. This is also in winter on my dining table. I use this from wheat. I actually I cut this grass, and then I make a wonderful juice out of it.
Great. Vjeko, thank you
I
for that.
think you
I
are.
think that's the end of the pictures, right?
Yes, yes.
Mhm.
Thank you, Karima, for helping me to show these pictures. And I really invite you to make some comments and bring us more ideas about how to help our environment and how to save the nature and planet.
Thank you, Vjeko.
Thank you
Wonderful
all.
presentation and wonderful good examples. Thank you so much for
As I
sharing
said,
them and
walk the
wonderful
talk.
ideas. Lovely.
Thank you.
So we're a smaller group, but I tend to Dimitar for
Yes.
the facilitation of a conversation.
Yeah, thank you, Karima. Thank you, Vjekoslav, for these amazing examples. Um, I believe that because we're such a small group, we can take the liberty to have more conversation.
Sure.
So I already see that Morgana would like to chime in. Please, Morgana, by all means.
Yeah, I was just making the comment. I just posted the the bus shelters in Utrecht. I couldn't do a screenshot, but I did the actual article. And then suddenly Vjeko mentions it on his slideshow. And it's amazing how if you can get your local councils, your local communities, and lobbying is really super, super important for how waste is divided into glass and chemicals and all the rest of it. And quite often, community efforts, uh, but also going like to supermarkets and figuring out which foods are actually sustainable in the sense of the production and the transport, how certain goods actually get to your supermarket, how sustainable is that? Not to mention, and the whole thing about the plastic and the multinationals who I just said produce the plastic. There are lots and lots of lobbyings you can do, but it often needs a community to get together and say, let's look at all our supermarkets. Which are the supermarkets which are trying to be the most sustainable, etc., etc. So what I always remind people is that it really is the community which can really, really change things, but it really needs as well your local governments and your local councils to also agree with you. And so that you know, protest protest does not have to be negative. No, a protest can actually be quite positive. So I just say to everybody, even a small um, uh, notice, even in the supermarkets, or rather, so every effort and every time you make a post, whether it's on Facebook or whatever, just think how this is actually affecting the whole environment or affecting things like climate change or the way you shop or the way you dress, fast fashion, which is dumped all over the place without thinking. So I just say to everybody, you can all do something. You don't have to wait for somebody else like Dimitar or Vjeko or anybody. You can already start day by day. So I just urge everybody, every effort is really, really valuable and needed. So that's my plea for today. Get off my soapbox. But I was just so happy, Jacob, that you mentioned the bus stops in Utrecht. It really is amazing. And when you're actually sitting there, it's just a lovely, you can just see the bees and things. So even just on Oz, those bus stops have a very different kind of effect. It's kind of weird how that works. But I just was very, very pleased that you did mention them. So thank
Yeah.
you.
We live and learn.
We certainly do. We certainly
And
do.
we live and learn and walk the talk, as we mentioned in the very beginning. Thank you, Vjeko, for bringing this amazing saying in English. As we mentioned in the very beginning, and now as Morgana and Vjeko are bringing again the idea, it's not only top-down approaches that we need to be waiting for. It's not the local council that needs to make the decision. It's also the small steps and the lobbying, but not to get too much into the political. I would like to go over to Charlotte, who would like to jump in.
Yeah, thank you. I think this is a very important talk because I think that it's really often that people are discussing environmental change and discussing impact, but not doing. And Veiko, you obviously put this into practice every day of your life, and you're an inspiration to us. And it's
Thank
really
you.
important to be grounded in that reality. I just wanted to ask two things. One, one is a statement. We have a new prime minister today in England, and
Mhm.
his commitment is to decentralization and to cut out the county council and local councils and make individual areas responsible for their own government. And I think, in light of what has just been said by Mariga as well, this is a really important step forward because three streets get together and say they want their bus stop shelter greened, and if the council don't do it, they're going to do it. It can happen at a level where action takes place. And as you say, positive action is a vehicle for others to show that you can do things. So that was one of the hopes I bring today, that maybe England, in being decentralized, can take control on small eco steps within community. But the second thing that you raised was corruption. You mentioned that word. And I wondered whether, you wanted to just enlighten on the struggles that you've had or what you've realized you're fighting against in your context and how we might learn from that or support you in that struggle.
Basically, sometimes local politicians decide to do some work just because they have some connection with the company that is executing that. So what they do, they take these good tiles out of the street and put it in the private gardens, but they put asphalt on the street, causing later troubles with heating of the city and also flash flooding of the city. And we have to, on different levels, we have to fight that.
Thank you. That's very clear. Thank you.
Yeah.
And over to David now. I
Thank
feel
you.
like we could just jump in and have a nice debate for the next 10 minutes. No need for me to say, okay, please welcome, speak, and
Yeah,
this
yeah.
and that. I think it will be a natural way to continue the conversation. Excuse me, David.
Thank you for this international conversation coming from the west coast of Canada on Vancouver Island. I find that my journey of faith and the ecological impacts and influences that I have led me to want to explore further something called process theology and Celtic spirituality. And that has led me to recognize also the wisdom and the wonder that indigenous practices and teachings have led me to in the path of being environmentally aware. And finally, I would want to say that in addition to the Holy Trinity, which is an important Christian teaching, that I find that I'm moving into acknowledging a sacred quaternity, so that not only is the Trinity celebrated, but the quaternity. The sacred quaternity for me is built on the basic elements of earth, air, fire, and water. And as one environmental activist says, what we do with those four basic elements, we do to ourselves because we are all interconnected and have a relationship of reciprocity, conviviality, and symbiosis with all the other beings of God's creation. And in naming the sacred quaternity, I like to think that it brings me into a greater awareness of the divinity of the world, the whole divinity of the world in which we live and move and have our being. So that's my little rant for this morning and in this opportunity. And I leave the notion of the sacred quaternity to be picked up and voiced wherever we are dealing with climate change and environmental issues. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Please, Karima, just jump in.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you once again, Vieko, and everybody. I remember doing a sacred opening at one of the URI gatherings on the first part of the one surah of the Quran, Surah Ar-Rahman, and noticing or pointing out, reciting and then pointing out that it has all the elements. It has fire, it has water, it has air, the soil, it's all in there, and the plants and the balance is basically the Rahman. It also speaks about the balance of life and the earth. So I can relate to what was just said. And yeah, I wanted to ask a little bit more about Yeko, about your rooftop garden, because
Yes.
I find that very amazing. And as a child already, I was painting pictures of, let's say, skyscrapers of concrete, and I was painting the leaves on it. No, why don't you put some plant on them to make them more beautiful and more, yeah, more natural? And I wonder how it works. You put the earth there. Do you have issues? Did you need to put some foil underneath so that it doesn't get
Yeah,
into your
you
walls,
need you
or
need to be to
what
hydro
you?
insulate hydro insulation is important to be first layer, and then you put just a layer of 10 to 15 centimeters of soil, and then you bring some plants and succulents. Succulents are the best for the roof, and then slowly you can add some other things. I even have some spices on the roof, just going and pick it up. And of course, I sometimes enjoy just laying down.
Amazing. I think that one can really, in all that those pictures, one can feel the yeah, the impact or what happens to us, no? As a human
Yeah.
being, how enjoyable it is to be in the
And of course,
green
it
and
is
in
giving
nature.
also a bit of oxygen to the planet.
Indeed.
Have your neighbors started to do or ask about how they could garden their roofs?
Some of them, they also started to make it like that, yes. And it takes time and it takes energy, but it is useful. And at the same time, you enjoy. Sometimes you don't need to go to the mountain. You can enjoy on your own meadow on the roof.
Might be an interesting project. I'm just thinking
Yeah,
to spread this kind of information, because I do think people are interested and might be afraid that somehow they spoil their roofs, but to share basic information about greening
yeah,
flat roofs, that could be quite interesting.
yeah. It is very
Mhm.
similar to these bus stops that are also with the green. That should be somehow a principle in the cities of the new age.
Maybe as I'm speaking, I have one more question, because I'm aware um, that your group with the people, the children, and of special with special needs, no? Where you do the artwork
Yes,
and the
yes.
education. I think they're also from different, coming to this interfaith or interethnic component. They also
They
have
are from
different backgrounds, right? You want to say a
different
few words
religious.
about it?
They are from different backgrounds, and also we have programs of taking them to different places of worship in Sarajevo. You know that Sarajevo has four places of worship: Jews and Muslims and two Christian denominations, and we they also learn because they didn't have a chance to learn about these diversities because they are limited in they move, but we have programs to take them to different places and also to visit some places even out of Sarajevo. And they are learning, and also we connect them with the typical school children so that it is both ways useful socializing.
Fantastic. That sounds really
Thank
wonderful.
you.
And maybe outside of the sphere of work that you're in right now, I would like to ask a more general question, a broader question, because we see that we can inspire one another within our networks. And
Hmm.
you, Vjeko, serve as such inspiration within the URI network. And thanks to those webinars, we're trying to share these ideas and practices with other people. But how can we reach even more people? How can we inspire even more people, from your point of view, of course, to start doing more small actions, more daily activities that do not require a lot of input?
Hmm. We can, I mean, one of the things is this webinar. The other thing is just using all social media. When I have some good idea or I have some good practice, I share it on Viber, I share it on Facebook, I share it on WhatsApp. And also I talk about that with my friends and my family also, and also I learn from others as well. I think exchange of good practices is very important. But people should also take time for that and not to be lazy to do something in that aspect. So many people are just playing games on computer or mobile phone instead of doing something useful.
And that's indeed an issue as we know it. Sorry, Charlotte, I didn't see you.
I was just
Please.
thinking, this concept of co-benefit, which I talked about a little bit when I spoke to the group, about the economic sense of doing these things. So you really well illustrated how the greening of your roof in global warming keeps you cooler and in the winter keeps you warmer. So instead of, the fear of the heat waves we're having now, people running out, getting air conditioners will just increase the heat.
We
There's just,
increase the heat
yeah.
in the city. Yes,
Exactly.
yes.
So it's a no-brainer. That shouldn't happen. If you found natural ways to do adaptation and resilience to increase heat through this method of cooling in the summer and warming in the winter, that is economically a benefit to people and to
Exactly.
countries and to others.
Exactly.
So we've talked about the message, Dimitri, trying to get it out. That's a sort of message which is a universal one, even if you're not an eco warrior. And I wondered if you could talk to us about that a little.
I didn't mention that in my apartment I don't need air conditioning, which is very important. And it goes with what you just mentioned, that it is economically feasible.
That brings me also, maybe one could partner with some entity or develop ourselves, like with Vjeko's expertise and Lawrence, and this idea about greening roofs or flat, and do a little brochure, and then with a
Yes,
URI
yeah,
partnership and spread it out. Be quite nice, I think, to spread this idea in that way too.
sure.
Yeah.
And just maybe on another note, Charlotte, I tend to disagree with you when you say that it will be economically better, because I would then ask the critical question, whose economy are we speaking about? And for what economy will it be better for us not to have air conditioners? But this is a topic for another question.
Yeah.
Some of you may know that I am a political economist by training, and I very much disagree with what you just said. But I very much agree with the fact that we really do not need or should not be needing air conditioning in Europe, especially in Northern Europe, where each year we see more and more the need for that, which is really, really sad. And knowing all these good practices that Vieco brought up, just by greening your roof, you can literally make your AC redundant or not need an
Yeah.
AC. Well, this is perfect for us, this is perfect for the environment, and this is perfect for the future. Because even with an AC on, it would not be the same if we would have the cool temperature, which would be thanks to the plants on the roof, as compared to the one uh, of the AC. So I disagreed with you purely on a technical um, matter, Charlotte, but I could not have not done that. So thank you very much for bringing that. And on that note, maybe we could see whether we have another question or comment before moving into Lauren, who will bring in a few very nice examples of some toolkits that we could use.
I have maybe one sentence because of this natural cooling effect. Claudia and I, we did a tour, a guided tour in the forest once, and you may know that, but I was always remembering that in a forest, the temperature would be up to 10 degrees Celsius less than in a city, nearby
Exactly.
city, simply because of the forest and the trees bringing the humidity, and which is wonderful. And I think we all know having a car underneath a tree or a bicycle for that matter is so different, or walking under a tree is so different in hot weather than between the houses. Yeah, thank you.
Perhaps you could unmute yourself, Charlotte.
Can I just clarify? I didn't mean sort of country economic. I meant almost your domestic pocket, what
Pocket,
you
yeah,
have.
yeah, of
That's what I
course.
meant. So your personal economic housekeeping, that at that level of ex paying for an air conditioner, but not actually in the long run achieving the aim that you do. So it doesn't make economic sense for you as a household. That was my point.
Of course, and I totally understand it would be more personally economical, so to say. But yeah, yeah, definitely. Thank you so much for the clarification. And of course, take my comment and disagreement as nothing bad, but just my brain, the way it works. Okay, so thank you, Vieco. Thank you, everyone, for the contribution, comments, and great questions. I think that we can go on for at least another hour like that, but let's just hear from Lauren what she has to offer to us today.
Thank you, Dimitar, and thank you, Vjeko. I really appreciated seeing the photographs. It makes it so personal. And to hear that you and your grandson are taking breakfast up on the roof,
Yeah,
I just love that image
and it's
and for
possible.
what
It's
it
possible.
models for the neighborhood. Oh, sorry,
Yeah,
go ahead.
and it is possible actually. It's very easy.
Right. Right. It is possible, and others say, "Oh, look, Vieco is on the roof again." It's so great. I also think that some of what we've been hearing about today with Vieco's examples, um, it's subtle and it's sacred. So just the illustration of that spider web, that the spider web is not something that must be taken down. The spider web is an invitation for us to be in communion with an extraordinary creature who eats mosquitoes for us.
Yes.
So what about being in kinship with these other creatures? And how can we model alternatives just through asking some questions? So when we encounter the preschool or the daycare that is not able to have the children play in the grass because they're playing on concrete or plastic, is there the possibility of the community coming together and co-creating something different for that daycare center? Can we bring some questions and curiosity to the beauty of being able to put our bare feet in the grass and doing it safely for these young children. Because, of course, that's the first place that the parents go, right? I want to make sure my child is
Sure.
safe, that sort of thing. So I think we're just being invited to think together about some subtle things and some very local things that can make a big difference. And I also really acknowledge some of the comments that were coming up in the chat about the importance of also going upstream to the bigger problems of, plastic being created in the first place. And how would we start to tease out where plastic is helpful and where plastic is destructive, right? So I just want to share 3 tools. This is what I do at the end of our calls, is to try to point us in the direction of some places where we might go to learn a little bit more or to take some local action and implement that. So the first one is the Buy Nothing Project. This is a global project. Some of you might already be plugged in or very familiar with this in the places where you live, but there are 14 million people participating in at least 50 countries. And if you look on your social media, you will probably see one or more of about 8,000 of these Buy Nothing groups, where everyone is networking together to essentially let go of the things that they no longer need, to find the things that they do need, and to not let currency or money be the thing, right? It's just about really trying to use what is already here and to keep it from going into the landfill. So that's one thing, the Buy Nothing Project. And then connected to that is all of that stuff that's going into the landfill. So here we're seeing the zero waste hierarchy or pyramid, if you will. And we've talked about that a little bit in roundabout ways today with Vjeko's presentation, right? That we know that there are some things down in that red triangle that are really, really not good for us. And they are designed in such a way that there is nowhere for them to go except the landfill when we're done. We're done with it and it goes to the landfill or the incinerator. And we saw the smoke plumes in Vjeko's picture, right? Like not good for anyone. But it's also true that there are more design thinkers who are remembering to include nature in the design process. And there are some really, really creative stories of people who have said, I am going to try to live for 1 year or for 1 month without throwing anything away, which means that there are things that I must not buy because I don't want to have to throw them away, right? And so in a follow-up message from Karima, you will receive some links to a few of these different documentaries and short video examples, but of different ways that we can start to climb higher and higher into the sweet spot of this pyramid. So that even in the examples of, okay, well, this plastic would go into the landfill, or maybe I can at least get one more use out of it by upcycling it right now. And so we think creatively about it, and the zero waste movement is a way to start doing that. And it points me to one example from a URI individual member and also a couple of examples from our cooperation circles. So always on these calls, I like to make it really personal and say, where in the network is this already happening, right? Runa Ray has been a guest in the Gathering for Earth maybe last year or the year before. A phenomenal low carbon fashion designer who her fashion is part of Fashion Week in New York City, but she works all around the world to bring a more indigenous approach to fashion design and also more instructions for how we can alleviate what she calls fast fashion from our wardrobe, right? Not supporting the fashion that is just going to turn into more waste. So her website is here. You can go and see more of the really beautiful things that she's doing. She's very plugged in at the UN. She uses the SDGs as her inspiration for a lot of the fashion that she creates. Very, very cool person. And then here are just a couple of examples. Vjeko's CC is clearly doing some of this work as well. On the far right, that is from an instructional link that you will also receive of ways that in India they're taking formerly plastic bags and creating essentially thread so that they can be sewn into a different kind of plastic bag, right? And on the left here, when I was in Malawi a couple of years ago, I was able to visit this incredible building, which is a medical clinic for women and children. And to create this medical clinic, they took all of the plastic bottles that they found in the gutters, on the side of the road, littering the streets, and they used them to create the bricks for this building. So this is not encouraging us to create more plastic bottles so we can create bricks. That's not what I'm saying. I am saying, how about we take the refuse off of the road and do something with them so that they're contained and doing something constructive, right? And we saw this in Vjeko's example as well, when they were creating planters and putting succulents in the planters, right? So there are more examples like this of just really creative ways of either reducing the waste or upcycling the waste, and finding ways that we're continuing to not just beautify, but prevent more climate-related disasters, flash flooding, and that sort of thing. And it's a both and always. You know, we are doing the local and we are demanding more from the people holding power and creating things that have forgotten nature. We're always reminding them that the spider is our friend. So that those are some tools, and as I said, Karima will share those links in a follow-up message.
Thank you so much, Lauren. Amazing examples,
Yeah,
and with
thank you.
pleasure I'll share those. So I have the little feedback poll asking you if you can fill it. That will be helpful for us. I'll start it right now, and then I hope that Lauren can end us with some spiritual closing. But let's take a few minutes to fill the poll. That is always good for us to gather this kind of feedback and be able to see what it brings. It's 5 or 6 questions, and you can scroll down.
Just a reminder, if you're co-host, you won't be able to activate the poll.
I cannot activate.
And I think at the end we need to press submit or something like that. I also cannot activate it for myself.
If we're not able to hit submit, one of us needs to, so I wonder if you could just remove me as co-host. Or it looks like, I mean, I'm able to click end poll. Should I just do that?
I think this is to end the possibility.
Okay.
But
I can't submit either. It's just not clicking. I've answered all the questions, and I had this problem again last time, Karima.
I don't
Is
know
anybody
what it
else
is.
having problems with
Two
submitting?
people have submitted. Is
I think we're
anybody
okay.
else who want to submit, or then I don't
Yeah,
know.
I
I will.
can't. I just can't.
Okay, so
I'm not.
I'll.
I mean, I'm not able.
Yeah.
Submit.
Okay. So it looks, Elizabeth, do you still want to submit? Then I'd wait. No. Okay. So then we've finished with the poll, and I'd thank you again for the lovely time together. And dear Lauren, would you end us with some spiritual impulse?
Yes. Just a big thank you again, Vjeko, for bringing these images to us. And
My
I
pleasure.
I invite us to just take a deep breath. In our closing moment here, we call upon the one who inspires us to be here at all. It looks different and it has different names depending on who we are and where we are and the community we find ourselves in. But as we remember today these green rooftops, and as we think about that spider doing her work on the web, we ask that the Creator who has created us weave us together in this similar fashion so that we might spread this news of ways that we all carry agency. We all carry healing in our fingertips, and all of us can participate in the healing of our land, our water, our trees, and one another. Blessed be, Amen, Amen, and so it is.
Amen.
Yeah, blessings.
Thank you.
I mean, thank you. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Take good care. We'll
Yeah,
see you
take
next
good
month.
care.
Thank
Enjoy
you. Take
summer.
care.
Oh, next month I thought there wasn't one in August.
Oh, you're so right, Morgana. Thank you.
Oh,
And
let
September.
me introduce the next one, and this is in September, and this will be Rauman Smitan and Morgana Saje of talking about on the the third Monday in September on COP31 in Turkey, standing up for faith, nature, and our planet, freedom of religion or belief, rights of nature, ecocide prevention. So
yeah,
we
I
are
need to
looking
get in touch
forward
with
to
you about
that.
that because I'm afraid that I will not be able to do that because I'm going to be somewhere else. But
Okay,
I'll get in
so
touch with you and see if I can do something.
good.
But I will
But
get in touch with you privately. That's why I know that there's not a meeting in August.
okay, so then
Okay.
we'll update you then.
Yeah.
Have a good day.
Thank you,
Bye bye.
everyone.
Bye bye.
Bye.